Record. Great. So again, good evening, everybody, and good evening, Sakino. I am really excited, and I feel very fortunate that we can take this hour today for just talking a little bit about this healing topic, which I feel is very necessary in the world today, especially me as Israeli. I know how much I have learned from you and still learning from you, and how much this method has been of great help for me on my personal life. So I'm very excited to share it with all the friends that I hear and whoever will receive this recording. So just to introduce Sakino, I met Sakino on 2016, it was, when Sakino first came to Israel. After a recommendation of a very good friend, I arranged a workshop for Sakino here in Israel, and it was the first time we met, and I simply fell in love. I fell in love with you, Sakino, as a person, and I fell in love with this method. I can share that ever since I've become the organizer, me and Chaitanya, which is here among us, the organizers for Sakino's trainings in Israel first, and then in COVID time, it went on international on Zoom. And I'm very fortunate to be one of your students and your organizer. And I'm really happy that we have this evening so we can share a little bit of this beautiful method with all the friends here. So good evening, Sakino. Maybe you want to introduce yourself to everybody.
Good evening, Tarika, and as always, Chaitanya in the background, which is so beautiful. I always have to mention that the two of you together are working miracles. And I think I want to mention first that it's a special day today. It's the 600th day of the war, the latest war, and I just pray in my heart that this war is ending, all the hostages are freed, and the killing and the murdering and the suffering will end on both sides. This is, for me, it's a heart issue, and it's just something that I have to say every time. Let us be human and care for each other. Just a few days ago, a woman died, 103 years old. She was a Holocaust survivor. She emigrated to USA and then came back to Berlin in her late 80s. And she came back to Germany because she wanted to spread the message to be human. And she always touched my heart deeply, and that's the only thing I think that can save us all, to be human with each other. She was always saying, there is no Christian blood, there is no Jewish blood, there is no Muslim blood, there is only human blood. So as humans, we belong together. And I just wanted to say that at the beginning before I talk about anything else.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Well, as for introducing myself, I am going to be 77 years old in a week. And for me, this is a number, somehow it feels like a great number, 77. And my life for the last 40 years, 40 plus years has been dedicated to healing. I grew up in a very traumatized family. My father was a Nazi, and he was involved in the murdering of Jews in Minsk, today Belarus. And it was silenced in my family. Nobody talked about it. And only at the age of 55, I found out about that. And I found out because I met a man, an Israeli professor, who had dedicated his life to research about the trauma after the transmission of trauma to the next generation, first from children of Holocaust survivors, and then later he turned to the children of Nazi perpetrators. And meeting him changed my life completely. That was the moment when I decided I want to find out what my father did, and I did find out a lot of things. And I also wanted to contribute to healing and to making amends. And that actually is what brought me to Israel. The first time I came to Israel was in 2006 with my then still husband and the two sons. And the moment I stepped onto the ground, I felt I'm at home. My soul felt I'm at home. And then later things happened. I got divorced and my life got all turned upside down. And but then I really researched about my father, and I developed a therapeutic program called Heal Your Roots, which contains many healing methods. But the basic method, of course, is family constellations, which I learned from the founder, Bert Hellinger. And also it contains other methods like storytelling that I learned from Dan Baron, and somatic methods from Peter Levine and others. So this program is what I have dedicated my life to. It gives my life meaning to contribute to healing. And that's my driving force in my life. I also got remarried again a year ago to a beautiful man who is Jewish and lost his whole family in the Holocaust. And us getting together, his name is Irvin Yalom, us getting together seems to me another step in healing both our wounds, his and mine. And well, this is who I am. I am a healer, I am a teacher, and my contribution to healing is to make amends and help people to overcome their traumatic past and the wounds from the past. I think that's all I want to talk
Mm.
about
So
myself.
maybe Sakino, if you can a little bit explain for those of us who are not really familiar with family constellation, or maybe just heard a little bit about it, or so a TV series or something, and are curious to know a little bit more about what is family constellation and how does it really work?
Well, the method itself was developed by a man called Bert Hellinger, who was German. He used to be a German priest, which is important to know because he lived for a very long time as a missionary in with the Zulus in Africa, and he learned a lot about rituals and tribes and belonging and healing there. And then at some point he left the order, his mission order, and became a therapist. And he studied with Virginia Satir, who is basically the mother of systemic therapy, an American social worker who developed a certain way of working with families who were in trouble. He also did psychoanalysis, he did psychodrama, primal therapy, and all these methods, which I also have studied, all of them, he somehow brought them together and developed this family constellation. And there are many, many attempts to really explain how it works. And nobody really knows exactly precisely. There are many assumptions, there have been many researches about it. But technically, it works like this: when it's done in a group, a client comes and expresses a particular issue that he wants or she wants to look at. And then from the group, people are chosen to represent members of a family or of a certain system that client is living in. And the moment that they are asked, would you like to be, let's say, my father, would you like to be my mother, and they agree to take that role, I always say the role takes them. So it seems that there is a tuning in of that person into a, we call it knowing field, that allows them to receive the information so that they can be that person that they are representing. Now, if you haven't done it, it sounds spooky. Even to me sometimes when I do constellations and I see things. Just yesterday again, I did a constellation on Zoom, and for me it's just, it blows my mind every single time I see it happening. And the best way indeed to know how it works is to participate and take roles. The ground assumption of family constellation is that we are not only individuals, but we are members of systems. We are members of our family system, the family we were born into and raised, maybe. We are members of a societal system. We are members of a political system. We are members of a spiritual system. Whatever we choose to be a member of, we become a member of that system and we have a place in that system. So the only system that we cannot leave voluntarily is our family of origin, because we are born into that. And in a constellation, what we can see is dynamics unfolding, like hidden things that nobody talks about, but that are underlying and determining what happens between people. But when it's not talked about openly, then it's in the unconscious. And in the constellation, the unconscious gets brought to the surface through the representatives. What it does oftentimes is that by opening up these unconscious, let's say, loyalties or hidden dynamics within families or other systems, it can be resolved. It is not necessarily every time happening, but it can be. But sometimes even through seeing something that has been unseen before, something happens in the person. That, because as long as we don't see something, we cannot do anything about it. That's for sure. But when we see something, like, let's say, oh, my fear of, just a theoretical example. Let's say someone has a very strong fear of darkness. And then in a constellation, we find out that someone in the family history, like a generation before or even 2 generations before, has been captured in a dark room, in a prison, in a basement, or has been yeah, hidden in a dark room, and has been very afraid and that person who that happened to has never spoken about it, but unconsciously has transferred this fear, let's say, to their child. And this happens, we have now evidence that the transfer happens through several channels. And one is the epigenetics, like in a genetic way, the person who has experienced such a severe trauma in their life, their genetic information that they transport to the next generation, to their child, is fed with that fear. So that fear is transported to the next person who doesn't know where it comes from. And through family constellations, sometimes we can uncover these connections. And that in itself is oftentimes very helpful for people. So, I mean, this is, of course, a very short description, but the main thing, I would say the revolutionary thing about the systemic approach, the family constellation approach, was that it made us aware that we cannot in therapy treat people only as individuals. We have to treat them as members of a system that influences them and who they are. Does that make sense?
Very much, very much. I guess people here, when they hear what you're saying, it brings up some questions. For example,
Oh,
how can a representative uh, pass this information about somebody that he never met or doesn't know about?
yeah.
And also, it brings up a question, does it really take over the representative? Or how much of the representative personality comes up in what he shares? So
Well,
maybe you can elaborate a little bit about it.
yeah. Yeah, this is a question that I get asked very, very often. Uh, but I always get it asked before someone has an experience of constellation. After they have experienced it, they don't ask these questions anymore, not in that sense. But we know we call this phenomenon the knowing field. That once we, as I said, once we are stepping into a role, we are stepping into a field that has all the information of the person we are representing. And we do not know how this works exactly. Knowing field is one expression. Rupert Sheldrake's morphogenetic fields, which he researched for over 30 years now, gives another explanation that members of a species, they carry information about other members of the species when they belong to the same system. And I think this is up to future research to find out how the exact pathways are that this is transported. But as much as I can see it now, after having done this work for so long, is that every time someone steps into a role, they immediately get information, they express things that they even say afterwards are not their own. They do not experience that in their personal life. They only experienced it in the role they had taken. And the other part of your question, could it be also part of the person? Yeah, certainly. But I always call it in the back of my mind, I'm still also myself when I'm in a role. So a part of me is relating to the role as well. And my own emotions, my own trauma, my own life experiences can be touched, of course, of course. But there is always a distinction between, oh, this is me and this is the role. I mean, you know it from yourself when you have been standing in
Mm-hmm.
so many roles,
Mm.
that it's clear. The distinction is clear. I've never seen a, let's say, a confusion between the role and the person themselves. But there, of course, there are overlappings.
And in my experience, also being in a role, often, very often, if I would say always, meets me on my personal issues.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like by a chance it's not by a coincidence that I am being somehow chosen into a role.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
I can
people often,
also, yeah,
yeah.
I can also say that the healing aspect of the work is not only to the person that the constellation is being uh, done to. It's not the client, yeah.
Yeah.
So the
Mm.
healing is happening actually all over.
Yeah.
And many of the constellation that I have been actually just watching were so powerful and so transformative for me. And I find it, yeah, very, very powerful work. And this brings another question that I'm sure that some of our friends here have. Uh, how does it work on Zoom? Because many of us know the work of constellation
Mm.
in a physical space, understanding that how we position people or the distance between them. So there's a different way of doing it on Zoom. Can you a little bit explain about it?
Well, yeah, it works the same. When you're chosen, you are asked to be in a role, you agree, you stand up, and you allow yourself to become the role. That works exactly the same. And interesting enough, also on Zoom, representatives of people, they feel, oh, I feel close to this person, or I want to come closer, I want to stand behind them, or I want to stand in front or next. So instead of doing it in the physical space, they express that they would like to do that, or they feel, oh yeah, I feel very close to this one, and I feel much more distant to this one. Things like that. So it's expressed more in verbal than in real action. But that's basically the only difference. As for the power, it works as powerful on Zoom as it works in physical space. I have to say, I was surprised myself when we started doing constellations on Zoom, which happened because of COVID, and it happened in the middle uh, um, of a training that I was facilitating in Israel. In the middle of one module, I had to leave because the last plane was flying out. And then we were sitting there, what are we doing now? And well, then a few beautiful people from that training and we decided we just give it a try. We try this method. We had heard about it. I didn't believe in it, not at
Mm.
all, not the slightest bit. And we just started doing it just in a small group of 4 people. We practiced a little bit with each other, and to our total surprise, it worked. And then we extended, and also, yeah, we finished that training on Zoom, and I started a regular Tuesday group on Zoom every Tuesdays since 5 years now, and it works amazing, amazing. So
That's true.
yeah, to me it keeps to be a mystery why and how,
Mhm.
but I trust my experience and I trust the experience of the others that are sharing that experience.
I would like to ask you one more question. I'm looking at the time, but I
Mm.
would really
Time is
like to.
flying, yeah.
Yeah, well, time is always flying when you're having a good time. And I do want to ask a question because you explained before a little bit about trauma that passes through generations.
Mm.
And I feel it would be a good question if you can a little bit explain about how do you actually work with trauma, either personal trauma or trauma that has been transferred through generations in a constellation. If you can a little bit explain, it's a big topic, I know. But if you can just give
Oh,
some, because people were asking about that.
yeah. Well, one thing with trauma that we have taken on from someone from a former generation is to recognize the person who has suffered in the first place. Like, let's say, an aunt or uncle or grandfather, grandmother, somebody in our past family. Recognizing that I am carrying from them. And in a constellation, it's very beautiful because we have specific rituals of acknowledging the suffering of that person, honoring that person, and also recognizing that I have taken on their trauma out of love, out of loyalty. You could say, I didn't want to leave them alone. Because this is how family systems work. There is a loyalty within a family system. Everybody who belongs to that family is valued as a member of that family, including their suffering, including what they went through. And if, let's say, a person in a former generation has not worked through their trauma, couldn't resolve it because for various reasons, then someone later takes on to, well, I take it on from you because you suffered, and now I am suffering because I feel loyal to you. And then the ritual that we use in different ways is always including the honoring of the person. And I really honor how much you suffered. I took it on because of love, but I know it's not mine. And I give it now back to you with love and respect. So this is in a nutshell. These are usually longer processes that we are working through. But we recognize that we have taken on a trauma from someone in a former generation when there is nothing in our own biography that explains a symptom that we are carrying. And then we have to look back. Who could we be loyal to? Whose fate are we carrying on? And very often we find someone or several people. Yeah.
Yeah, you spoke about symptoms, so I also want to
Yeah.
uh, ask, like, working with a constellation, it's also possible to work with body
Oh,
symptoms,
yeah.
with with which topics would you say that you can work with a constellation?
Well, any body symptom, I can work with a constellation because, as Gabor Mate says, the body, when the body says no, or Bessel van der Kolk, the body keeps the score. Our body is carrying everything. So when we are having a symptom in the body, we know that symptom wants to tell us something. And as our body is also a system in itself with all its organs and everything that belongs to the body, we can do constellations with body symptoms, with body parts, and see what they have to say. This is a well-known technique already from another therapeutic tool, which is called Gestalt, that you let body parts speak or you let the symptoms speak. So not everything that we are doing is originated only in family constellation, because family constellation is a melting pot of from different sources. But yes, symptoms. Just yesterday, I worked with a very strong body symptom again, and it was just incredible what came out.
Mm.
So there is an incredible variety of themes that we can work with constellation method. But there is also taking a little leap to the training. When I train people in this Heal Your Roots, my basic understanding is the technique of family constellation is easy to learn. Anybody can do it. Take someone in a row, let them stand, let them speak. But you can also do a lot of damage with it if you don't have the tools to really to listen, to direct into a healing path. So for me, a basic understanding is what we have to learn is to listen to the other. And this is what I learned from Dan Baron. And listening not only to the words, listening to the whole person, to their tone of voice, to their gestures, to their body language, to the color of their skin, to every single detail of their physical and emotional being. And for that, I include all kinds of other methods, like somatic experiencing, which I learned from Peter Levine, and as I said, the storytelling from Dan Baron. Also knowing how the nervous system works, how you can recognize when someone is let's say dissociating. Like you can also, some people say, go leaving their body with their
Mhm.
consciousness because something is too much. You need to learn to listen to all of this, and this is definitely part of a big part of the training, practicing.
So talking about the training, also the trauma part is
Yeah.
a very important part of the
Mm.
training.
Yeah, yeah.
I find it very important to say because it is a huge part of the training, and this is
Yeah,
something that I find it's very important because when you do not know how to work with trauma, a constellation can be very damaging. If somebody
yeah.
doesn't know how to recognize trauma
Yeah.
in a constellation, can re-traumatize the client,
Hmm.
either also
Yeah.
the
And this,
representatives.
I think it's also very important to know your limits. Like, let's say I am a therapist, I'm specializing in trauma work. So this is my main path of life for my own story. But then there are also people who don't want to work as therapists. They work in corporate settings or as lawyers or as doctors or whatever. Uh, and they also need to know how to recognize when something is beyond their capacity to work. So it's not only to be able to work with trauma, it's also to recognize, oh no, this goes beyond my expertise. This is something I shouldn't touch. So yes, uh, yeah, I think that's enough.
Yeah. I can also say that having done this training for the first time, I can definitely say that first I did it for myself, for my own healing. It was
Yeah.
a journey of healing my own roots. So with this, I look at the
And
time and
let me just say one
yeah.
more sentence. And I think this never stops.
Mm.
I'm still healing my own roots. Every time when I work in a group or with a client, I am touching my own issues and I'm healing my own wounds. This is part of the journey. But yeah, it's the start of healing, or is the start of learning to heal others, is healing, starting to heal yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. I look at the time and I want to give space for people to ask questions. So maybe before we open the chat for questions, I also would like, we spoke about the training. So maybe Chaitanya, you can also put here in the chat box so people can copy and keep it, the link also for the training, both in Hebrew and in English, so people can have it. And of course, the link for the workshops that we are going to have of Sakino in Israel. There are going to be two workshops, one on Friday and one on Saturday. Friday would be a family constellation workshop that will be, of course, open for everybody. And on Saturday, it will be a workshop that will deal more with trauma work.
Yeah.
It also is going to be open for everybody and all are welcome. I just want to say that on the previous visit of Sakino to Israel, I opened the workshops at evening, and by the morning when I woke up, it was full. So if you do want to secure your spot, you are very welcome to do it soon.
Yeah.
All right, so I would like to open now the chat for
Sure.
questions. Any questions about constellation, about the training, whatever comes up, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, if there are no questions, I can ask some more questions. I have more questions.
Now the chat is open. It was closed.
All right, so now the chat is open. You are all welcome to ask. I would just say also that the training is going to start on the 26th of June, and it's going to be 1.5 year training on Thursdays evening. In Israel time, it's going to be 6 o'clock until 10. And Europe time, well, it depends.
5 to
5 to 9.
Central European time is 5 to 9. British time would be 4 to 8. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back. All right.
Yeah. That goes.
And yeah, and we still have few spots open for the training. Yeah, so if you do have questions, please. Yeah, I see. Well, Gabriela, there's a question. How easy it is to transfer the work we learn online into offline constellation work? Means that once you learn it online, how can I apply it on my with my clients on physical?
It
Space.
depends. When you are in a group, you do the same thing as online. You let your client choose representatives, and when they agree, they stand up in the room. And the only difference is that in a physical space, I have two options. Sometimes I let the representatives just move around, find their place by themselves. The other option is that I ask the client to stand behind the representative, put the hand on their shoulders, and guide them to a place that they feel is the right place now. And then the procedure that comes after that is the same as online, that I ask everybody how they feel in their place. I add maybe elements, or I change places. So the difference is that in the physical space, they can move in space. So they have closeness or distance physically visible, as where on the Zoom, it is only that the representatives express. I feel physically close to this one, or more distant to that one. So that's the difference. But the transfer is very easy, as it was the other way around too. So I haven't really seen any difficulties. What I also always recommend to my students is to attend workshops of other facilitators, if possible, in person, so they get different approaches. Because my approach is very specific, I have to say that. I would say I have a very unique way of working with people, which is different from others. And I always really support to get as much experience as possible. So when you do an online training, attend workshops in physical space with other facilitators as well. So your field of expertise is bigger.
And I also want to say that, well, for the Israeli participants of the trainings, we will have a physical meeting, 2 days of physical meeting with the assistants of the Israeli assistants of the training. And for those of you who are from Europe, we will have 2 days of physical meeting and practicing in Europe. So there's also an option, of course, for practicing, and of course to join constellations that the assistants are facilitating, and there are a lot of options to practice.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I have now a group of very, very, very capable and good assistants.
So I want to read more questions.
Sure.
Daphne is asking, can it happen that someone who got a role didn't get the information? Like just standing there and nothing happened?
No. The thing is, sometimes, very rarely, but it does happen, someone says, I don't feel anything. And that's usually part of the role already. That the client says, oh yeah, this person indeed did never express any feelings or something. But that somebody does not get the information, I have not experienced that. Of course, it can happen when someone is under the influence of mind altering substances, which can be alcohol or drugs or psychiatric medication. It can happen. So I always make sure that people are sober when they come. And it also can happen when someone is experiencing in themselves extreme emotional states at that moment, that they are so overwhelmed with their own inner experiences, states, then they cannot really tune into a role. But that gets evident very quickly. And it doesn't happen very often. I have seen it maybe 5-6 times in the 30 years that I'm doing this work.
And normally, if somebody is very busy with his own stuff, they never
They
volunteer
never take the role.
also to take the role.
No,
and they always
because
say no.
No, and it's also clear that we always say that right from the beginning, you always can say no to taking a role without explanation. It's a voluntary service that we give each other. And if I don't feel ready to do that, then I can say no. It's not the right time for me.
Yeah. There's another question coming from Nityam. How can I have a dialogue, I guess, between my story and the story of the people in my family? Because sometimes my story doesn't fit to the story of my family, and it gets conflicts.
Yeah.
I guess the question is about conflicts
Well, I think the
in the
question
family.
is, everybody has their own narrative. No member of a family has the same narrative as the others. And that's why the listening to the otherness of the other is so important. And conflicts start when we don't allow another person to have a different narrative from our own. Then that's when conflict starts. But when people can learn to listen to each other's differences and different narratives, peace can happen. But of course, this is not only a family issue. This is an issue that is creating wars and killing, as we know. But it starts within the family. And the narrative, in my family of origin, everybody has a different narrative. Every child in a family has a different childhood, because every child in a family has a different parents. The parents are not the same for each child. And we have to take that into account when we work with someone or with a family. And I love to work with families, by the way. I was asked in my last, I do master classes now with the graduates from my trainings, and I was asked in the last master class, how do I work with a real family? And the first thing is I let each member of the family construct their own family constellation and let it be seen by all the others. And that in itself is sometimes so healing. So yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And it brings me to another question that was not asked here, but I'm sure that many people do have it in the back of their head. Can a constellation influence people that are not present in the room?
Oh, yeah.
So, and how does it happen? I mean, if I have an issue with my mother and I'm creating a constellation, I work with this relationship, can it influence my mother, even though she was not present in the room?
Yes, it can.
Can you explain
I
a little
think
bit?
this is what I said in the beginning, what we call the knowing field, because what we do in a constellation is like ripples in the field of our family. And again, if someone asks me, how does this explain? How is this happening? I only can say no. But well, I have seen it many, many, many times. You have seen it too, Tarika.
Oh, yeah.
So, how does that happen? I don't know. I just see it happening. And I hear the reports of clients that I have done constellations with who call me or write to me a week or two. I always say, please write to me 4 weeks after the constellation and tell me what is happening. And when they write me, oh, this and that is happening, and I say, well, I remember one constellation longer time ago. Someone hadn't talked with his father for 12 years. And we did a constellation. And he calls me, no, he wrote to me a few weeks after. He said, 2 days after our constellation, my father called me and we are going to meet. And this is what I call miracles. I have no idea how this is happening. But the only explanation I have that is this, what I said in the beginning, the morphogenetic fields by Sheldrake, or the knowing field. I don't know. Yeah, but it happens.
Well, I'm kind of looking at the time, and there are no more questions. So maybe a last question, if there's somebody that wants still to ask something, we can still have the last question. You are welcome to write. And in the meantime, just I would like to ask you if you have any suggestion for if somebody finds him or herself stuck in same patterns, repeating the same patterns, or being stuck in life and finding it very difficult to change something. What would you recommend? What would you advise as far as from your experience and from your understanding?
Well, what comes up in my mind right now is a little bit provocative. I would ask that person, is there any benefit in being stuck? And what is the benefit? And very often I get the answer, well, I don't have to move. I don't have to change anything. But also being stuck can be very painful. And if someone comes to a constellation group, well, I would probably do a constellation with that. What is in the way of moving forward? For instance, that could be a role. Because I have seen often that when I put the problem that someone comes with or the issue as a representative, that the representative already has some enlightening answers. Because when we are stuck in life, there is a fear in us to move. Right?
Of course. Change.
Yeah, yeah. So giving that fear a voice, letting that fear speak. And very often things come to light that have been hidden before.
So a constellation can actually start a movement.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say that a constellation is not a final, a whole therapy? Means a person would not come for a session of constellation and will just conclude all his issues and be healed.
Well, I have never seen that happen, but certainly a constellation can shed light on something that has been in the dark before, that hasn't been seen before. And that usually and very often is at least a step into something change, into some change, into a direction, well, maybe into a healing direction.
So you would say it's kind of an unfolding process, and a constellation, it's also not something you do only once.
No,
you can repeat a constellation.
You can do many constellations, but I also am warning against this tendency to, which is unfortunately quite common, to put anything, I mean, every little
decision in life.
Yeah, any little issue in life into a constellation, that's also overindulging. But if used sincerely, it's a beautiful method to bring light into the darkness, bring light into hidden dynamics, and help to dissolve suffering. It's a beautiful method.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And with this wish to dissolve suffering, I think we will conclude this meeting. for this
I want to
evening.
say one last word because
Please.
I have been following the death of the last pope and the inauguration of the new pope. And what really touched me with this new pope, I mean, the one that died also touched me deeply. He was a beautiful human. And the new pope, first words he said when he came to the balcony was, "May peace be with you."
Mm.
And I think that's something that's really, really, that's the only wish I have. May peace be with us on all levels, inside families, between people, between religions. May peace be with us.
Thank you so much, Sakino, for this. And thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. I see that Chaitanya again has put here the links for you to copy for those of you who are interested. And again, thank you all so much. And thank you, Sakino, for taking this time and sharing
Thank
with
you.
us.
Thank you for this beautiful hour.
Mm. So may peace be with us. And good evening to all of you. And sleep well.
Thank
And
you.
see you soon in Israel, Sakino.
Yes, in 2 weeks.
Yes, I'm looking forward.
Me too. Okay.
Okay, so you can maybe unmute just to say goodbye if you wish. And we will conclude this evening.
Thank you.
תודה רבה, סכינו. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Sakino.
I'm going on gallery and I see everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
You
Thank you.
all.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Good
Good night.
night.
Hope to see you whenever and wherever.
Tschüss.
Tschüss.